Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the IIID Mumbai, it's known as the MRC to us, welcome to this webinar series. The webinar series, you have to learn to pronounce these words from seminars to webinars, not webinar. That's when you're airing something. This has been powered by Hybec Lights. And we'll tell you about Hybec Lights and what they have to offer from their products and what kind of services. But this is a 4-part webinar over the next 4 days, all starting at 5 in the evening. Now this first one, but before I tell you about that, let me tell you about the team that has been working in the background. This project has been spearheaded by the chairman of the MRC, the Mumbai Regional Chapter, Leena Dimbalkar. The mentor of this project and program has been architect Rajesh Patel, who's a past president, has been a past president of the IID. The coordinator and putting together and organizing everything has been architect Milind Pai. The driving force behind this has been the very dynamic Rupa Pinge, architect Rumba Punge, who also drives TFOD, the future of design. I'm going to be a moderator and trying to just keep this thing in sync. And but before that, I'm going to invite Milind to tell us a little bit about Hybec Lighting, who are driving, who have powered this project and made this project possible. So welcome everybody, and over to Milind. Milind, over to you.
So thanks so much, Hybec, for sponsoring this entire series of 4 webinars. And with that, I ask Konrad to take over for the rest of the evening. Konrad, please take over.
Okay.
Yeah, Conrad. All the best. Go ahead.
Thanks. And here we have this evening, we have Amit Gupta, the founding partner of Studio Symbiosis, who's going to make a presentation, going to speak of the techniques of computation and design using various tools. And I'm happy to share a little about Amit right here.
Conrad, can you start your video, please?
I don't have a video on this. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, no problem. Conrad, continue. You can't.
Okay. So here we have Amit, who's the founding partner of Studio Symbiosis, an architectural practice based out of Delhi and Stuttgart. He was born in Delhi. He moved to London in 2004 to do his master's in architecture and urbanism from the AA. And upon graduation, he joined the international celebrity Zaha Hadid Architects from 2006 to 2010. Amit started his own practice in Delhi in 2010 by winning the prestigious Athletic Ripple Sports Complex. Studio Symbiosis has since been involved in projects of various scales and sectors. Computational design overlapped with sustainable design solutions are used by him to achieve a rich spatial landscape, creating a performance-driven space. He has won a number of international awards, including German Design Award, Iconic Award, International Properties Award. These are just to name a few. And besides this, he has given TED Talks in Bremen, Germany in 2050, on the topic of performative aesthetics. Alongside, he also spoke at Smart Geometry Hong Kong. And CNN Style has covered his work at Studio Symbiosis as a feature which was titled, "These Rising Architectural Stars Could Change India's Skylines Forever." So this is the kind of star we have this evening. His key projects are Doubletree by Hilton, Ahmedabad, the 1,200-acre Trans-Ganga Master Plan in Kanpur, Eco Park located at Delhi, and numerous others. But with that, I'm going to hand over to Amit to share with us his thoughts on computation and design. Amit, as I said, has been the founder partner of Studio Symbiosis. They are headquartered in Germany with an office in the United Kingdom and in India. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Conrad. Thanks a lot for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you for this first session. So I'll just share the screen. The topic of today's discussion, which we have carefully selected, is called the diagram. Diagram is one of these forgotten elements of architectural design, whereby with computational tools and techniques, we are more focusing on creating cool architecture. This is a new term which has come up in the last year, rather than focusing on the basics of design. So diagram has been an age-old technique which has been used. It's a very powerful design tool in the sense that by using a diagram, we can look at aspects of design which we could not compute otherwise. Some of the examples of this is the Fry Auto system which he created using wool thread system. So on the left is a system of wool thread which he created, and then after dipping it in soap bubble, he got the shortest path system. So as I said, this computational tools and techniques which are there, like a lot of you would be trying here dynamics or other things in computation, but this has been there for a very long time. And pioneering architects and designers have been using this technique in their own way to understand the systems of nature and articulate them in design. This is a famous model from Antonio Gaudi, where he did this hanging chain system. So what he did here is he used the forces of nature, gravity, to come up with a form of the Sagrada Familia itself. Now, why was it useful? It was useful because using the gravity, he created a system which was very structural in nature. So what we see on the right of the image here is a system of facades of the entire geometry, which is actually driven by the structure itself. So in this case, the form and structure were combined together as one. And the way he was designing it, there was a mirror placed at the bottom. And the invert image which he was getting was this design element. So it's a three-dimensional design diagram which was used. A diagram does not have to be two-dimensional system. It can be, of course, three-dimensional. Now, this is a diagram from OMA. OMA used very strong diagrams. Their architecture is about creating this very strong gesture and very simple. So what we see on the left is the program which the company got. So the practice had this lot of different elements which they had to incorporate in the design. So on the left is a big mess which they had. This is the diagram which they created in terms of the block model. And on the right, so they started classifying the elements of design. And then there was an interweaving process which was done between the various programs. Now what this enabled them was to create an architecture which was very true to the diagram. And also there are these moments where various activities intersect with each other. So in the sense that a diagram can come from structure, nature, and in this case, program. This is a very famous diagram from Peter Eisenman. So he believes that computational technique will give him a new language of design. And he wanted to write a new language of design using this computational system. So using this force system, he created this diagram, which enables him to envision the design in the end. See, like computational techniques are as good as what you put the inputs in. And it's not a tool which will give you the design. You are the end designer. We are the designer. It's just a tool which we can use to create architecture. And then the iterations which it is running, in the end, of course, it was Eisenman who selected which model to use and where to stop. This is very interesting. So how we occupy space is a very interesting thing. Traditionally, we make all spaces square. Maybe it's because of cost of construction or other elements. We have a brick, which is, of course, a square, so it's always easy to construct. In this study, Bill Hiller, who's the owner of Space Syntax, he did movement path studies of how a person occupies a space. So the diagram on the left shows the movement of a person in the space. And by doing this, he understands which are the underutilized spaces in the entire plan. And then by reconfiguring the space using the movement pattern, he could eliminate the spaces which were redundant and put a better function there. So in the middle is, of course, red is the high function spaces and greens are very less. So by using this system, so it just shows that using computational tools and techniques, it's a simple image mapping system which he used. So in this case, it was very easy for him to understand the space usage and to optimize the way we use the spaces. At the end, computational design is not just to create architecture, it's also to optimize things. In nature, we see everything is robust, efficient, there's no wastage of materials. So by using these tools and techniques, the algorithmic system, we can create something which is very precise. We're not wasting. Sustainability is the key which we are focusing on going forward, to use as less materials as we can and to give as a robust system we can provide. The rightmost image is the same principle which Space Syntax used at a city level. So here they were analyzing the street movement to see how the streets are behaving and if there are any nodes which are creating a clutter in the system. So now these were some examples from architects and designers and space planners who have used a diagram effectively. The point to show you these diagrams from people before is that a diagram can be used in various methods to compute different things, and also the result can be used in a very interesting manner. Now in this particular presentation, I would like to take you through the 4 iterations of diagrams which we have classified for the sake of this presentation. So the first one which we would like to speak about is natural systems. Like I spoke earlier, nature is very robust and efficient. Whatever nature does is very precise. So for us, the idea is not to copy systems from nature, but like the term system says, we are trying to create systems from nature. It is all about understanding the logic of what nature is giving us and trying to modulate this into algorithm, which can be then translated into architecture. So the first project which I would like to show you is the Perfume Park and Museum in Kannauj. The project is based on a twin city agreement between the city of Kannauj in Uttar Pradesh and Grasse in France. So the idea was that these two states came together to create skill development center for the people of Kannauj. ISRO is something which is made in Kannauj, but unfortunately the cost and the know-how of this product outside India is very less. So the idea was to create a place where these people can showcase a product, and it helps them also in developing the skills in terms of exchange program with people coming from grass and helping them out. So as a designer, what was the design phase? It was to create, we were given a 50-acre piece of land on the Agra-Lucknow Expressway, adjoining it. And the idea was to create a perfume park and museum. Now the design required us to put a museum in the center, which had an exhibition center and also a sales point. And then there was requirement of bigger plots in the design, where we would put the distillery, skill development and greenhouses, and accommodation for the people there. Now this was a very interesting brief for us, because there are a lot of different activities which are happening in the design. But for us as architects, we wanted to combine everything together. So given that it is a perfume park and museum, we thought, why don't we look at the essence of the project, which is a flower. Flower is the component which is used to create the perfume. Very interestingly, if you look at a flower very closely in the center, the central image, it is actually following a Fibonacci series. Fibonacci series is following principles of golden ratio, whereby the grid exponentially starts becoming bigger and bigger. So this is something we computed and extracted to create our base design. So the center point of the design was the museum itself. And then we started generating this iterative grid, which was based on the Fibonacci series. Now this grid was a starting point and the base diagram for the entire design. So even in terms of how we did the interiors, the central building, everything came from this grid itself. We did not go out of this grid because the idea was to keep the purity of the grid and the system, so everything comes together. So this is the iterative grid, which was generated using the Fibonacci series. Now going forward, this very irregular plot which we were given, we could have actually placed different buildings in different corners based on accessibility. But the idea was that when a person is moving on the site, he has very clear visual lines towards the center of the design. So what we did was, the Fibonacci series was bifurcated into plots. So now these plots at the center of the Fibonacci series, what you see in the bottom of the screen, is this 3 petals, which again follows the outline of the base diagram and creates the 3-petal diagram, the diagram within a diagram, where the building had 3 functions. So these 3 functions were each represented by 1 petal. So 1 petal was the museum, second was auditorium, and third displayed the art and craft of the city of Kannauj. Then next to the central building, we had this small parcel where we were growing flowers for the perfume itself. So the idea is that if a person is coming, he sees the process and he gets one visit. It's not just a information center, but it's also some place where a person can come and enjoy the entire day. So we're looking at the design brief as both the sides. And also the interesting thing was, because of Fibonacci series, the corners plots which we had, we got 2 to 4 acre plots on the corners, which means you could put distilleries on the left side, which had a separate access. We could put skill development center and dormitories on the right. So although it's a unified grid, all the activities came together in the same system. So this was the image of the project. The idea, of course, like I was speaking about the diagram. So this is a view of the display area. This is a view of the cafeteria. And behind this is where the display is happening. So this series is also projected on the base of the building. Now this is really going one step further, where the system is not just 2-dimensional grid, but actually is translated into the architecture, the interiors, and the facade of the building. So also, like I was speaking about this gradient from the building radiating out. So this was very interesting for us, that if a person is walking on Perfume Park and Museum, any part in this park, you get this very strong movement lines which take you to the focal point of the project. So it also helped us in driving the movement path on the site, whereby a person can really experience the nature around him. This is a night view. So here, like you can see, the radiating paths are going there. And also these parcels, the perfume gardens around the building, they create a very nice backdrop for the architecture to come out of. This was the overall site plan which we worked upon. So of course, the idea was not to create a lot of buildings. It was to highlight the hero, which was the perfume, and the ingredient which goes into a perfume, which is a flower. So this is the kind of architecture which we're looking at, and it was all possible because we used a very strong base diagram, which came from the system of the design brief. So we followed the design brief, extracted the system of a flower, looked into Fibonacci series, and translated in turn into the project itself. Then, of course, going forward, when we had the base volume, we are trying to do iterations in terms of structure, stability, how the cantilevers are coming. There was a lot of iterations done in terms of solar studies because we used a lot of glass on the surrounding, on the building itself. The idea was not something which is gaining a lot of heat. That's where the cantilever studies came into play. And based on the solar studies, we analyzed it, and the depth of the cantilever was decided from. The next project is a very different project. This is a shopping mall in Pune. It's a mixed-use complex, which is a riverfront development. Now, before I show you any further, the project is located on banks of a river, which floods every year outside the city of Pune. So the design brief was not to go outside the high flood line. And for this reason, we chose the concept of erosion. Because the site is eroding every single year, we thought, why not we take this principle of nature and translate this into the architecture of the site itself. So we firmly believe that the site also informs us in terms of what it wants. So in terms of form evolution, the diagram which we used on the site, we plotted the high flood line, which are these two lines, post which the points were placed, and then the system of erosion was created. In this system, the built and the landscape comes together seamlessly. So it's not a system that you create architecture first and then the landscape afterwards. It should be an amalgamation of the two, a very fuzzy boundary, which really creates this fuzzy zone between where the building starts and the landscape starts. So it should all slide into each other. By creating this in this image like we were showing you, so the architecture actually emerges from the base diagram. We use this fluid line, and being a shopping mall, we could be very fluidic in nature. We did not have to put rooms inside this. It was a shop, eateries, multiplexes. And then furthermore, we create this multi-layered spaces. So we use the terraces, the lower ground floor, and the ground floor. So if you're walking within the space, you have this multi-layered space which you're experiencing, which is very interesting. So it's not just XY dimension, but it's also the Z which we are incorporating in the design. So, and also the architecture comes out because shopping mall is a very interesting category. There's not a lot of light condition required apart from the skylight. So we could treat the entire project in sense as a sculpted form. So this becomes an experience in itself because shopping is all about experience. So this is an experience to be a part of this project and move through it. Now the second part of the presentation, the second category for the diagram is about translating context. Now in translating context, the idea is how can we take very simple thing as a context, which is a very important factor in any design, and transform this into the design of the project. So this project is a very different scale. The first two projects were low-rise buildings, which is spread around. This is in a very dense urbanism of Versova in Mumbai. So the design brief actually started with a 4-acre plot where we had beautiful view to the waterfront. And these buildings which are in front of the plot, these are low-rise buildings without any possibility of coming higher. The only building which could be higher was the one next to us, which in the end the client also took over. So for us here, the idea of the design brief in terms of the context is the view of the waterfront. So the design, the only thing which you're looking at all the time, apart from the efficiency and the modulation and the bylaws, was the view which we can give from the apartment. So we set out ourselves a very impossible brief. We said the client's brief was to make 2 towers. That's the only design brief we got from him. This was in terms of phasing out the construction. But we set out our own brief, which was that every space of every room, of every flat should have a view of the water. If you're in the kitchen, if you are within the living room, bedroom, anywhere, you just see water because this is what the entire project is about. So we started the base diagram, which was these 2 building blocks with the proper setbacks and tower to tower distance which we had to leave. We translated this into a 360-degree tower, which meant that there's no corners and no overlapping issues. Furthermore, the little overlapping we had, we started rotating the towers So this was actually iterative. So we ran some computational simulation, which gave us the optimum location of these two buildings in terms of the view. So some parameters were fed into the system, which gave us the output in terms of what the location of the two towers can be. With the parameters, of course, we had set. So in the right diagram, we can see that we are getting views from each and every apartment. Given the fact that we have used this 180-degree view, so the idea was to exploit this. And then this area in the back, this is where the core sat, because of course it's impossible unless it's an island. We cannot have 360-degree view. So the back side of the building is where the core sat. Now the evolution of the design itself, it came from the fact that we set the basics in place, and then we started creating this dancing tower. For us, it was very fascinating to start a project in Bombay, which is 120 meters high, and to look at creating a new piece for the skyline. So it's not just about what you see from inside out, but also what you give to the city in return. So developing this system, the base diagram which we set out with, which was that every room should have a view to the outside. So this is the view of the two towers, the dancing towers, whereby we see a lot of glass here. Now the thing which you don't see really in this is that one side is glass and one side is solid. So by doing this, we are actually opening up. We are creating a dichotomy where the part of the room facing the waterfront is totally glass, and the other side is a little bit over the edge glass, and then we make it solid. So by doing this, we create a system where there was a morphing of glass and this opaque system. So as we went behind the building where the core is sitting, we started creating this very building there. Because the core was there, so we did not have this requirement. And of course, a lot of other things in terms of costing, views, what are we looking at. So here, by just using a very simple thing, which is a view, we create the architecture from this. And this is what we see from the flat. And of course, we are playing with a lot of green terraces in the building. And every apartment gets this view of the waterfront. And looking at the buildings from the riverfront, we see these two dancing towers, which is a very opaque building, so it's also not obstructing, and we created a slit between the buildings, so it is not standing as a heavy mass in the skyline, but rather moving around. So there was also a parameter set that it actually opens up as two distinct buildings rather than merging into one. So this is the international design competition which we won, I think 1.5 years ago. This is Gwalior Central Train Station. The design brief was to create the central station and the context which you were given was the old station in the center. Now, this is a very interesting project for us because we had to really create a system which is a large span system for the station platform. The platform is a brownfield project. It's not where we can actually decide the platform width. So one of the challenge was that the biggest distance, which you might see here between this platform and this platform, the center to center distance is 32 meters. So everything else was immaterial to us, because we are designing a system for 32 meters essentially. So in this case, we were not really designing just a train station. We were designing a social space for the entire city. And this particular station sits very nicely in the entire city fabric because we have the historical old city on the one side of the station and the new development on the other. So in the design stage, we also connected these two places whereby you can actually go through. And the plaza of the station and the station itself is something that people can actually. Now with this TOD policy, there's a lot of commercial also there. So it's not a requirement that people who are only coming to the station are there, but we're actually encouraging the entire city to come here as an outdoor space. Now coming to how we interpreted the context as a design driver and as a diagram to start with. So this building is not listed building, but it's a heritage building. So for us, this was very interesting that this building was itself built in phases. And we tried to retain the central part of the building was built in 1908. And then the other two wings were actually erected in 1980. It was a later extension to the building itself. So of course, we don't believe in creating a future by demolishing the past. The idea was to retain the past, highlight the past, and only then we can go in the future. This was the entire design thesis which we're looking at. So for us, we found this arches very interesting. This is something which existed on the heritage building, and it's a system which we could articulate into a three-dimensional system, which is a form, function, and structure, and everything is amalgamated in one. So these arches are translated into a 3D module, which we see here on the right. So these two-dimensional arches were transformed into 3D modules, whereby various elements of structure were incorporated and translated into the design. So really we got from this very simple system of a 2D diagram into a 3-dimensional system, which was again a diagram for us to start with, to start the design process. And then through our iterative and repetitive process, we create families of this module, which were dispersed on the site based on the requirements of light condition and the height condition. So it became for us a more adaptive reuse project, whereby the new highlights the old. So it's where we are trying to echo the past by creating the new. So it was really this translation of old into new, which was a diagram, which was very interesting that we are creating this system. And of course, it's a large span system, and all the MEP pipes are going through the columns. The lighting is integrated. We are getting this natural light and shadow play inside the building. So through solar simulations, we're also looking at the lux level, which we get inside the building. Trying to make a sustainable building, we cannot really rely on deep span systems without any natural light inside. If we start putting artificial light, it defeats the purpose of doing anything which is computational or anything which is algorithm based, because we are not for something which is just looking cool or looking nice, but you're actually essentially looking for something which is sustainable. The idea is to create buildings which are legacy for the futures to come. So in this case, we looked at a play of light and shadow by creating this element in the center. The pattern which we used was actually used from the Gwalior Fort. So we translated the pattern into the room pattern and converted this into light wells to bring in light inside the station project. It's a very cheap and efficient system to animate light because the sun is anyway moving throughout the day, which means that essentially our shadow patterns on the floor are also moving. So by doing this, we're actually creating a dynamic space by using a very constant pattern, where if you're on the platform, you get this repetitive view of the columns. And there's a very inherent beauty about repetition also. When you light up the columns in the night, you uplight the columns. There's a very beautiful way of lighting this up, and the light actually creates a very interesting drama in the day and within the night. Now this, although is a bit commercial project in terms of the usage, it's Hilton Kathmandu, but for us it was a very interesting project in terms of interpreting the context. For the context for us, the design brief was to use something local. Now the local elements of Kathmandu is wood, we have brass, copper, the carving. Now of course we did not really want to go in the direction of using something which is carving based. Yet we want to use something very traditional and which is very resonant of Nepal. In this particular project, I think we did around 15-16 iterations of the design. And the idea in the end was we were trying to look at the architecture of the city. But in terms of interpretation of the context, one day we realized that there's another thing apart from the architecture, which is the prayer flag. So prayer flags is a very integral part of the city of Kathmandu. And this actually is everywhere. It's nowhere, but it's everywhere. So we thought this is very interesting because it is a part of the city of Kathmandu. And it has a very strong connection to the culture of Nepal. So we decided to use this as a part of the design itself. We translated the prayer flag into a system of vertical pins. So what we see here is the diagrams. In this case, the diagram was a more three-dimensional diagram. It's a hotel. We had to make sure that we get maximum rooms per floor. We had to check the efficiency system. So what we did with the diagram is that the building opens up in this diagram on the right. The building actually opens up to the views on the right side of the building. So the highest mountain range, which is visible from the valley of Kathmandu, is Lantang Range. So what we created is every alternate floor has balconies. Initially, the client and the hoteliers did not really want balconies, but then we really wanted to promote this feeling of being in nature. And now they are really in love with it. So the idea for us was to open up the build form towards the right, which is Lantang Range. And this vertical pink elements are actually dichroic glass. So dichroic glass by essence, it changes the color based on the inclination of the sun. So the idea was that this prayer flag, which we saw, in a very subtle way, we translate this into this vertical dichroic laminate glass. So in this case, as the season changes, the time of the day changes, and also the height of the glass where it is, when you're passing through the site, you see this very nice effect of colored glass. And this is a clear glass with a dichroic coating on it. By doing this, we're actually echoing the city of Kathmandu in this project. And the idea is that the prayer flags are actually coming alive in the city of Kathmandu, which can be seen from a very far distance. So here we actually are going with very little warm color. The idea is that we create a warm feeling in the building also and translate the prayer flags here. The system also modulates by trying to create this prayer flag on the left using dichroic glass. We also end up with a system to stop this without running all around. So the system of balconies are actually changing, let's say on the top floor, where all the dining is. So here the system is actually pushed back a bit inside. Now the challenge with this complex geometries is of course that we need to articulate the system and optimize the system and the costing also. When we started the design, the glass wastage of this project was around 42%. And there was curved glass in the center. Now in this particular rendering, the glass wastage came out to 2.05%. And there's no curved glass at all. This is all faceted glass. So by using computational tools and techniques, it's not just to create architecture. Concept design is just the start of design. Actually, there's all these stages we can make the design better as we go forward. So this is what we try to do, where we create something which works very well, and also it, the ownership is happy with it. This is a street view. The urbanism is very exciting in Kathmandu. The setbacks are very less. So you really feel it's a very urban feeling which you get here. Now the third system which I would like to speak is iterative system. Now in this part of the presentation, it's about how we can take a system and run iterations to create architecture from it. So this is a 680-acre master plan which you've done in the city of Kanpur. So the idea was to use fluid dynamics. So we use CFD analysis, which actually is used by engineers to check wind turbines, and it's a very technical tool. But as architects, we actually have the legacy, or we can always misuse a tool, trying to use it for our own benefit. So what we did here was we looked at the patterns of the river Ganga. The idea was that the site itself is a very nice fluidic edge. So the river is flowing here. And on the other side of the city, of the design project, we have a very strong city grid. The site is effectively sandwiched between river on one side and a very strong city grid on the other. So for us, we wanted to create this system where the city grid actually extends in, and we create a very fluid riverfront. To do this, we plotted the points of the existing points, which were the attractive points based on the city activity. So there was an archaeological museum here. There were some ghats here. There was a museum and some other elements which we wanted to retain, and which were already magnets of this particular zone. So by doing this, we started running a CFD analysis, where this plotted points actually translated into attractive, and the grid was being informed to create this movement pattern. Through this base system, which we could not have really plotted without computation, we end up with this time-based diagram, whereby the grid is actually being informed by the attractor points, and these attractor points on the riverfront are used for activities. So there are certain activities which are related to the riverfront zone, which is in terms of cafeterias, commercial, iconic buildings. So using this diagram, furthermore, we went, of course, the city grid was there then. So this very strong grid of the city within, it was translated into standard plots. So we still have 1:2 ratio housing plots. And as you come to the riverside, we start creating this river edge, which is very fluid and informed by the grid which we had. So this is the result which we end up with. The idea is that these fingers from the city, these green fingers which are coming, and these arteries are actually feeding into this iconic tower. The riverfront is modulated based on the diagram which we generated. These were all attractor points. And we can see that the system actually modulates. Here we can create ghats. And it was a very fluidic riverfront. The height of the buildings was also used as a silhouette. So the buildings try to strengthen the design move. So it was not just to leave it as a 2D exercise, but to translate the building height and to create a very dynamic riverfront, which we have there. The entrance of the complex, this actually is the entrance the bridge brings you into Kanpur itself. On the left side, we have the archaeological museum. So we made a museum for archaeology, an indoor museum, and there was a building for the city of Kanpur. So this created a gateway for the city of Kanpur. And these are the green lungs which I was speaking about earlier. As a sustainable design practice, we always look at segregating the design movement path. So we're looking to segregate the traffic of any site from the design stage. So essentially by creating this design lungs, which are going through and through in the city, we are segregating the traffic of pedestrian and bike traffic, which are actually moving on the green lung, and the cars are segregated separately. So it also takes off the load from the main arteries, and it encourages people to walk in the green. So this is the entrance or the gateway which we created to the city of Kanpur, with these two very simple but iconic buildings. So one thing is, of course, that if a building is low height, we can play more with steel structure. We can create more fluidic form. But as we start going higher here, the idea was to create something which is a bit more simpler, but we're just controlling the skyline. Now to control the skyline is also tricky because the plots are usually sold on FAR basis. So the size of the plot, we ran an algorithm where the size of the plot was analyzed with the height of the building and the FSI which we got. So essentially the building bylaws which were made. So we're just giving plots, defining the FSI and the high point. By doing this, we could actually achieve the skyline. This is a 7-year-old project from the office, but this is a very close project to us because this is, I think, the first time in the office we used computational techniques to do heat gain reduction studies. So in Punjab Kesari headquarters, the idea was to create a very contemporary floor plan, a contemporary form, but then to and create a facade in the city of Delhi. So for this particular project, we started with full analysis. So by running the analysis, which was an iterative process. So I don't know how clearly you can see, but the opening percentages are changing with each iteration which is running, and the efficiency curve is trying to reach the optimum efficiency. By doing this, we reduce the heat gain of the building by 42%, which is just for design. There's no glass specification, there's nothing. Just the design and the architecture reduce the heat gain by 42%. And furthermore, we had one more parameter for this iterative process. We were looking at giving 500 lux level at workstation height. So the idea was that at every workstation on a normal day, you don't need to turn on artificial light, but you can actually use natural light through it. Because in the end, again, being a sustainable practice, we're trying to make sure that we're using natural resources as much as we can and depend less on actually artificial systems. So of course, then it was also about the formalism. We created something which was quite unique in terms of the entrance. The staircase inside itself is the element which becomes the drama. This is the iterative diagram which we created for the project. So this is a diagram which was very interesting for us and very important for us, whereby this overlapping hexagon scaling, the scaling of the hexagon by overlapping this 3 grids, we got different opacity ratios. So the ratio changes from 81%, 54%, 27%, but it's a gradient. It's not like we're changing the scale or we're changing making small windows and big windows. It's just how we are doing a gradient of the system, which was giving us a system of facade. So this is the overall thing. The building is already up, and now we are doing the facade system. So this is the staircase I'm speaking about. So in the inside, again, in this project, this was not the first one. We're playing with light and shadow by creating this. So it's very interesting because designers, it's easy to create something in on the design board. But then when we start executing things, we learn a lot of things of how to deal with things and what the market can do. So here also the central staircase was very interesting to resolve because we did not put any column inside this. There's no hanging system. Essentially, there's a plate at the floor, plate at this area, and it's a suspended staircase which is there. So for the staircase itself to resolve, the structural consultant and us, we work together on computational tools to ensure that we are creating an optimum distance to load ratio. The staircase is not collapsing, but a steel system can be created out of it. Hilton Ahmedabad was the first hotel which we did in the office. So this particular project, diagram which we started with was to break away from a traditional hotel. In a normal hotel, you would always see that the podium of the building, which are the lower 3 floors, are a bit bigger. Why? Because they put the reception, lobbies, all-day dining, restaurants, banqueting, everything, kitchen, this comes from the lower thing. And then the upper part is put on top of it. So it becomes 2 different buildings at first. But I wanted to break this diagram and create something which is really amalgamated into one. So in Hilton Ahmedabad, the idea was to really take this landscape triple. And of course, another thing was landscape. the hotel plots are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So for us, the idea was that in this 1.5 acre plot, which is a good sized plot for 200 key Hilton property, that we create something which actually where the landscape and the building merges together into one. By doing this, the building also becomes bigger, and then we amalgamate the two into each other. So as a part of the reality of hospitality architecture, the lower floors is where the public floors are. This is where we have the flexibility of architecture and design, because the spaces are not really driven by a grid, but it's more about experience. And then this magenta lines, which you see on the upper floor. So this was extrusion of the form. As soon as you go in typical floors, the rooms need to be very standardized. So we optimize the cost of interiors, construction, and everything else. So we had 33 to 34 square meter rooms in the upper floor. So this was the initial diagram which we created. So the design looked at this ripple effect, which was coming from the landscape, and then goes on to the facade. Now, as an iterative design, it was very interesting for us to resolve this, because what we have done essentially is we have created double curve facade. It is curving in plan and it is curving in section. The reason the facade system which we use is horizontal lines which are flowing on the facade. This is essentially breaking the facade into vertical. So every panel is actually getting broken vertically. And the line where the facet line would come is hidden behind the facade. By doing this, we convert this double curve facade into single curve facade. But of course, there was another challenge for us, which was to look into the lower floors, because it is still a curve facade. So another thing before I come into the curve facade, how we dealt with this issue, is there was another very pressing issue for us during construction, is that when we signed the project, the FSI for the plot was 1.25%, and then it shot to 4%. Essentially what happened is, during this time of construction, the ownership was always looking, like the idea was to add more room. So to do this, we were really running against time, because the building was under construction. But we had to model this thing. It was not a very simple square where you can add things on top. So it was a modeling exercise. We will need to check how many rooms we are getting, the size of the floor plate. And one of the challenges was that the height of the building was related to the offset of the site. The bylaw says 0.3h and 0.6h was the setbacks of the site. So for this, we created this iterative system, whereby if you input any number, the other systems are changing automatically. And also for us as designers, we can see how the form is changing and what we're getting in the end. Because just by drawing floor plans or just by doing something in isolation was not working for us. So we actually animated the system which we had created just for the sake of the presentation. Essentially, we have all these elements. So if let's say your FSI increases to 3.5 right now, or it's 1.8, and you want to check how the building is at 2.5. So if we input this 2.5, it will give us the iteration and how the building looks in 3D, and what is the number of keys we are getting in the setback condition. So it was a algorithmic system which we could generate, which we generated to visualize and make the system a bit more faster. Now coming to this issue of cold bending, to the bend panel. So the iteration was, of course, we had to do a lot of computational systems. We had to do iterations and optimization of the panel sizing. The cool thing was that our glass panel was 4.8 meter high. With such a high glass, we have a lot of flexibility in the glass, which meant that if you would fix 3 points of the glass, we could do cold bending, which is essentially pushing the fourth one into place on site. So we converted the single flat panels into curved panels on the site through execution process. This is one of the images of the project, this is the executed image of the project. So we have this cantilever, which is 21 meter freestanding cantilever, which we got. And it's a solid aluminum sheet, and yeah, the glass came from Dubai. In terms of costing, there's always a critique that the cost is always more. But in this case, I think in facade, we had a variance as compared to a glass building, let's say in Gurgaon, we had a variance of about 5% maybe in the overall costing. This is another image which was taken before the opening of the project. So yeah, so we managed to translate our initial diagram into the vision which we had. Of course, the project, we had to learn a lot in terms of how to resolve this complex geometry in Indian conditions. These are the cold bend panels on the lower floor. This is something which we took during construction. The lobby. So the last part of the presentation actually takes the focus from this large scale project to material intelligence. So this is a built image of what we call the smart launcher. It was done for Godrej Design Lab. So for us, it's very important. Sustainability is at the core of our practice. We try to do everything sustainable as much as we can. When we speak about curve form, there's a lot of wastage of material. If you were to use board, you would rip out the upside, the top part of the board, then try to bend it and do a lot of wastage. So we did not want to do something which is really wasting material, but something which is smart. And also to bring back a technique of curving. Curving is essentially the distance of this slit which you see on the smart launcher. So the distance of this gives us the bending radius of the entire launcher. So wherever the radius is less, the spacing increases, and where we need more, it comes in. And also there's this study which we had to do, the direction of the curving. In some places it is inside the object, and in some it is on the top. So this was very interesting because we tried to create something which is, first of all, the issue was a person has to lie on it. It's not just sitting. A person is completely lying on this and transferring the entire body weight on this. And the way we designed the system is that it's hollow from inside. So we have the silhouette which is running on the object, which creates the design. So this was exhibited at India Design Fair. These two prototypes which we did. And to get into the process as material intelligence, a lot of studies were done on this. So what you see on the top here, so first of all, we had to analyze which wood type we need. So a lot of different types of wood were used. Then after we finalized the type of wood, we had to check if we should cut along the grain or against the grain. Because this very simple thing actually made a very big difference on the stability of the entire form. If you're cutting along or against the grain. And also if you're cutting in one way, we were getting more panels, and the other way we could finish the thing in only 3 panels. So a lot of iterations of patterns which we did. In the end, we used a very simple pattern, which was a horizontal line. Could not be any simpler than this. So every year we try to set a theme for the office. This year when we did the smart launcher, the theme was low tech, high tech. So the idea was to take a very high tech backend and to create an output which is very low tech. Output in terms of the execution drawing. And by doing this, we can create a complex geometry. So in this particular form, we did a lot of stress analysis. We checked the inclination of the object, how the stresses are working. Then this curving depths were checked, the curving spaces were checked. We did, I think, 5 to 6 prototyping in the process. It's just not digital only. These techniques have to go from digital to analog and back. Unless we do physical testing, digital will not work. So in this particular thing, we really did a lot of back and forth. So whatever we learned from physical studies, we put it back into the computational system. And at the bottom of the screen, what you see is this very simple vertical line. So we gave this one long sheet to the carpenter. So this was the final output. This was the execution drawing for this entire smart launcher. There was not a second drawing which was given to the carpenter. So essentially what it was, which was a plane. So we cut the flank to size and flank, and then we pasted this sheet next to it. And the carpenter just put this slits on the piece of wood. By doing this, and through this very high backend and this simple drawing, we managed to get a result which was there. Now the last part of the project looked at creating a form, but an amorphous form. There's a lot of wastage at times in exhibition design, and the idea was to create a system which is more related to, amorphous form. So we looked at natural systems. Nature is very good at articulating systems. Here it creates a form from cellular automata, whereby the coral formations are actually creating the system itself. It's how they come together with each other, which creates the overall. So the part generates the whole. These are some other systems in nature which we were studying to create this pavilion. So it was a pavilion which was executed last year in the summer in Lucknow. So the idea was to create this amorphous form, but structural system. So we took something which is very quick to assemble, easy to deploy, and easy to disassemble. So this is a GIF which just shows how the aggregation principle works. Essentially, it's a node and 4 spokes. And how we aggregate them together is how we can create this deployable system very quickly. So this was the design concept, to take a node and to create this amorphous shape. And we can actually create a lot of different shapes. We can do curves, we can do anything, because it's a component logic. So this was one of the iterations which we did. and this was executed project. So we went from this to this. So because again we were doing a lot of research in backend and we had to check the self-load. So here the challenge for us was the self-load of the components. Because as we start aggregating components on top of each other, the challenge was that these things should not collapse with a self-weight. So these are just some zoom. It was a CNC cut. And again, when we started executing the project, we had to look in the type of board, tolerance which we were getting. One board was actually cutting 0.2 mm more on the laser cutter, and the CNC bed in the other one. So the nodes were not joining. So in this computational technique, we end up at times investigating things which we would not have thought about. But yeah, the end result is very exciting because it's not just about creating architecture, it's also about creating systems and trying to understand what is out there and what we can generate. So this is just us playing with how the light and shadow behaves on the system. And you know, this amorphous form, how it behaves under this very simple moving light at night. So that's it from my side. Conrad, I give it back to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Amit. I think this was a brilliant presentation to start off this series. And what's really impressive is that so much of taking from what is in nature, right from computation numbers like sacred geometry, Fibonacci numbers, right to that, till the various kind of processes that happen in nature. The growth of petals, the erosion of soil, the view from a building of the outside, not only how the building looks from outside, but also the view from inside the building when it's near the sea. I think this principle that you've used of integrating, not intruding, blending inside and outside, amazing.
Thank you.
I think I enjoyed this presentation. The questions are going to come, and there are a lot of questions which I think have come in from the audience. Do we have time to take this?
Yeah, go ahead. Can you see the questions, Conrad?
Okay. The first thing is, how do we strike this balance, keeping at the back of our mind our principles of being fluid, learning from the river, not having waste in our materials, using all these systems? How do we keep a balance between that, using computation techniques and producing something which is happy? Because what I see at the end of the day, each of the objects you've created and the buildings you've created, you have created happiness. So can you share some of your processes or the thinking on this?
So for us, actually, when we start any project, it's really shutting off from the entire world, to tell you the truth. We don't pick phone calls, nothing. And the idea is to really analyze the brief. So we try to understand the site conditions, the design brief, costing, location, and what kind of construction we can achieve in that area. So by doing this, we try to narrow down on certain principles. And then of course, the typology is very important. So let's say for a shopping mall, we could be more adventurous in the architecture. Hotel, let's say like Hilton Kathmandu, it's a very straightforward building, a vertical building, but we still play with it. So the idea is always to create a balance, because that's why we call ourselves Studio Symbiosis, because the idea is always to create symbiosis between various elements of design and principles of design.
Okay, fine. I think basically you've been leaving the place always better than you found it.
Well, that's the intent.
I think that should be the principle that we all do. We learn from what you have done on this one. I think we have some audience questions, Milind.
Yeah. So, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the few questions that popped up at the beginning of your presentation, Amit. So I'll go in that sequence, so it's easier for you to relate when they came up. So first question that came, and a good one, is what is the contextual relevance of such build forms? Also, how do you handle this dilemma of context responsive architecture versus a form-based architecture?
The context is very important. Now the question is, what is context? Context is existing architecture. Is context nature? Is context solar? Like Punjab case, the context for us, surroundings is only factory building. So there's nothing to look at. I can make big windows, there's nothing. So for us, we define the context there as the sun movement. For us, the idea was to create architecture which responds to how the sun is there and trying to cut down the glare in the office building and to increase this. So context can be interpreted in various ways. Of course, in certain buildings, it takes a bit more precedence, like the train station we did, or the other one in Bangalore, which we're doing. So I don't think we should relate only in context terms of what was built before you, because the context is the piece of land, the earth which you're given to construct a building on. That is the context. Now, what are the various parameters around it? Is it a view which it is giving? Is it a solar condition? Is it a heritage building around it? So we take liberty in this sense that, because it's a trap also, because we can get into the trap of trying to copy old architecture. So we try to create, so for us, context is not just existing architecture, but it's a lot of things which the site has to offer us.
Yeah. And I think most of the questions that are popping up, I think they relate to the softwares. So people are quite keen on understanding what kind of software you use in what context. There are different questions, very specific ones, but in general, if you can give a purview to our audience, because they are very inquisitive about the kind of software that goes into your designing, and whether, as you rightly said sometime back, there are some myths also which people have about using the software like Grasshopper and Rhino. So could you just give a overall picture of how you guys use your softwares?
So softwares, I would classify them in terms of the requirement of the project. So there are some softwares which are very good for concept design. So I know a lot of SketchUp is being used in colleges. We get a lot of applications, students are using SketchUp, some are using Rhino. In our office, it's a mix, so we're using Revit a bit. And Revit is, starting from concept design, we're using something which is a bit more fluidic, which gives us more freedom in sketching. But before we sketch anything on the computer, at times we sketch on paper. And then we open the computer. It's actually very useful for us. If I would open computer, I get lost in the techniques of the computational world and I start thinking like that, because my thinking goes from design and site. So what we do is the design process is very simple. We take a printout of the site, put it on the table. We take 20 printouts, do sketches, and then from this we start moving on to the software. Now coming to the software topic, of course there are things which are, there's something like Blender, which is of course totally free, which you can download, which is something which can be used for concept design. Then there are softwares like Revit, and which is something which you can use for BIM modeling. So let's say Gwalior station would have to be submitted in BIM, so BIM is a requirement in Singapore. If you want to get a building approved, you have to submit a BIM model to the authorities to get it approved. Without this, they will not approve the building. So there's various stages where different softwares are required. There's a lot of options. There's not only one software. I think ArchiCAD has something, Vectorworks has it, Rhino has, Autodesk has. So there's a lot of options. There's not just one thing. There's a lot of different softwares which you can use to do the same thing.
Quite a few people, or they have the notion that some of this, that sophisticated software is like a magic pill, makes you a great architect straight away. Tell us something about this.
So Conrad, we have, I can tell you, like now it's, I finished my bachelor's in 2003. And now it's, I think, 16, 17 years since I finished my bachelor's. So in Zaha's office, we spent a lot of sleepless nights trying to learn design. In AA, we spent again a lot of sleepless nights. Same here. So this is just a tool. If I would not know how to use a pencil, I cannot sketch anything. Similarly, if I'm not saying they're great designers, but if let's say you don't know how to design, you can open the computer, you will be looking at a blank screen, but the design will not just come. You need to move something to make the design. It's always good to know software. It's always good to be in sync with what is contemporary. But we should not let go of the basics of architecture, which I think is missing these days. So students especially, they should still focus on proportion, scale, geometries. These parameters are still very valid. I think these are the tools of architect which we use to create design. So computational techniques are there, it helps you in creating more complex systems and resolving systems. But that's about it.
Okay. Do we have any more questions, Malin?
There was one very different.
Complex, you have to work hard. You can have more iterations and you can have more options with tools like this.
There was one gentleman who was asking a question as to, you were saying, as we see in the Kanpur project, the riverfront has been designed with respect to the surroundings.
Yeah.
But nowadays, a lot of waterfront development has resulted in losing the essence of water body. And he's quoting an example of Mumbai coastal road development. He wants your take and opinion on that, the Mumbai coastal project.
I don't really know about that project, Milind, sorry. I'm not aware of it.
Fine. That is a link, sea link that they are establishing of the Bombay coast.
The sea links which they're creating, but it's not a riverfront, no? It's more of a...
Yeah. This is talking in context of the water bodies basically being encroached as a sea.
See, again, okay, so Dubai is a classic example. I think if we speak about water, no one has messed around more with waterfront than Dubai. They made the Palm Island, they made the island of the world. So what happened is a lot of... So, of course, in Dubai, they hired the best of consultants. I think Arup was there, Buru Hapad was there. They got the best of consultants to do analysis of fluid analysis of how the water currents will change when they start making these objects. So I think, and they had some issues because they're creating, I think, from what I read or saw, is by creating the island of the world, the Palm Island, there was an erosion started which happening on the beaches around it. Because the water which was coming, it got diverted by the palm and it started eroding the riverfront or the natural coastline of Dubai. So I think, it's always good to make things better, but that's why we are there, engineers are there, architects are there. Unless we can take decisions as long as they're informed decisions. Yeah. So it's very difficult to say that something will impact ecology in a negative way. It's just about, have we thought about it? The important thing is to think and then act, rather than just act.
Yeah. Right. I think we have more or less concluded relevant questions. Actually, there's so many of them, we can't take it off in our time span now. So if you, Conrad, you want to ask something on a parting note?
Good. No, that's fine. I think so. It's been a very inspirational presentation, and we can see what tools can help us do. And I can see that really the tools just allow you to think as much as you want to and imagine. It's always sometimes because it is difficult to do something or difficult to imagine something, we stop at one option. Anyway, that's a very old school thought. I think we need to give a resounding applause. We're not going to hear that.
Yeah, it was.
But
extraordinary presentation. We had almost 800 participants today.
Yes.
So, and by the comments, you can see how popular this series is becoming now. And the whole context, what we wanted about is the parametric inquisitiveness in our audience is actually, you can judge for ourselves, the kind of questions people are asking and attention we are getting. So, we would like to.
What's important also is that sorry, Milind, I button.
No. Sorry, you can continue because we lost out on the audio of the sponsor. So you can conclude, and I'll just.
Certainly, we can do with that. Yeah. But before we go to that, let me tell you that please join in again tomorrow. Milind, whom do we have tomorrow? Sushant.
Yeah, Mr. Sushant Verma.
So Sushant Verma, same time.
Yeah, same time, same place.
Same time, yes, same place, and it's all the same digital space, cyberspace. But please tell your friends. I think there's place for more. There were no empty seats today, but when we have a few more chairs, good tomorrow. Okay, Milind, let's go with that.
Yeah, I'll just share the sponsor's audio again, all over again. Just give me a moment.
And while he's putting that together, thanks to everybody who's contributed to making this presentation and making this event great. Thanks for all the people who participated and encouraged us. Amit, most of all, thanks to you for sharing your vision which has been translated into reality. Milind, thanks
Okay.
for putting this together.
Yeah, I'll just go on to the audio, then we'll wind up. Yeah. Just.
Who said darkness is the opposite of light? As we see it, light can be a faithful companion of night. An intimate play of light and shadows can create dramatic visual appeal for your environment. It can enliven your moods. It can make you feel safe. It can guide you along the right path. It can stir passion. It can bring all together. It can spread happiness. It can lead you to success. It can give you peace. It can save life. It can be your future. Hybec, lighting the future. Our successful run in the market is determined by our 15 years of continuous search for innovation and understanding, backed by exclusive franchisee outlets in several cities and a robust supply chain. Hybec works with a slew of architects, interior designers, lighting consultants and structural engineers to complement your design needs for a bedazzling installation. Hybec's technically superior collection of lighting systems caters to all tastes, spanning from contemporary bold designs. Let yourself be gently led with Hybec lights. Hybec, lighting the future.
Yeah.
So can we end with a thank you?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, so right away, thank you to Amit for the
Thanks a lot.
first show,
Yeah,
and all the best in your work. Thanks
Thank you
to
for inviting us.
yeah.
Thanks for inviting me for the very exciting series of webinars which you're hosting.
Yeah, it was a wonderful session today, Amit. Thanks a lot for joining us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And also thanks here to Milind who put all the legwork in to get this show on the road. To the mentor, architect Rajesh Patel, for conceptualizing and linking everyone's efforts together, along with Milind. To Rupa and the future of design, for giving us this inkling of the future of design. And of course, the team headed by Lina, the chairman of MRC. So thank you, everyone. And two conditions: come back tomorrow and get a friend along.
Yeah. A good one. Okay, Amit, we will see you also tomorrow.
See you guys tomorrow. Thanks a lot.
See you. Yeah, thank you so much. Bye-bye.